Learn English like a child. Have you ever heard someone say, learn English like a child? It sounds like simple advice, doesn't it? But is it really the best way to learn? Today, we are going to examine this idea carefully and honestly. Some parts of this advice are helpful, while other parts are not very realistic. By the end, you will have a much better understanding of what adults can actually learn from the way children acquire languages. First, we need to make an important distinction. There are two different situations we should think about. The first is a child learning their first language, their mother tongue. The second is a child learning a second language, such as a foreign language. These two situations are not the same. When people say, learn like a child, they usually mean the first situation. However, I believe the second situation gives us much more useful lessons as adult language learners. So, let's look at both examples and then discuss the parts that adults can truly use. Let's begin with a child learning their first language. At first, it seems like the perfect example. Children become fluent in their native language without taking classes or studying grammar books. They simply listen, interact with people, and slowly begin speaking. It sounds amazing, doesn't it? However, when we examine this process more carefully, we can see that it is very different from the experience of an adult learning a foreign language. Let's think about listening first. A baby spends many months listening before saying their first real words. This silent period is very important, and it lasts for a long time. There is something valuable we can learn from this. Spending a lot of time listening before trying to speak can also help adults. Many learners benefit from hearing a large amount of English before they start speaking. But there is an important difference. A baby listening to language is having a completely different experience from an adult listening to a foreign language. When babies hear sounds, their brains can recognize and separate sounds from many different languages around the world. Newborn babies have a remarkable ability to notice a wide range of human sounds. Their brains are open and flexible. As children grow older, however, this ability gradually changes. Their brains begin to focus on the sounds they hear every day in their environment. Sounds that are not part of their native language become harder to notice. For example, many Japanese speakers who have not studied another language may struggle to hear the difference between the English R and L sounds. These sounds are not separate in the same way in Japanese, so the adult brain may not automatically recognize the difference. This does not mean the person is less intelligent. It is simply a natural process of how the brain develops. When a baby listens during those early years, they are hearing language with a very flexible and open system. When an adult listens to a foreign language, they hear it through the experience of their first language. They compare new sounds with sounds they already know. A baby does not have that same filter because everything is new. Here is another important difference. A young child can only understand simple ideas. If you talk to a 3-year-old about complicated topics like investing, advanced science, or politics, they will not understand, not because of the language, but because their mind is not ready for those ideas yet. The topics children can understand are limited for a long time. They can talk about animals, food, games, family, and basic emotions. But adults are completely different. As adult English learners, you already understand complex ideas. You already have knowledge about the world. You already know how to think, analyze, and solve problems. If someone explains a new concept to you in English and you understand the vocabulary, you can understand the idea quickly. A small child does not have this advantage. This is one of the strengths adults have when learning a new language. Your brain already has experience. You mainly need to build the language skills. There is also the physical side of speaking. Babies cannot immediately create clear words because their mouths, tongues, and vocal systems are still developing. They need time before they can control the sounds required for speech. Adults do not have this limitation. If someone teaches you how to pronounce a new English word, you can practice it immediately. Your speaking system is already developed, while a baby must wait for their body to grow. Now, what about reading and writing? A child learning their first language starts completely from the beginning. They have never read a book in any language. They have never written words before. They are learning these skills for the first time in their lives. Adults already have this experience. You know how reading works. You understand symbols and writing systems. This gives you a major advantage, although sometimes it can also create difficulties. For example, if you know another alphabet, your brain may try to connect unfamiliar letters to symbols you already recognize. Sometimes this can slow down learning because your brain makes incorrect connections. A child learning to read for the first time does not have this problem. They simply learn each symbol without previous expectations. So, when we compare an adult learning a foreign language with a baby learning their first language, we can see many differences. The environment is different. The brain is different. The experience is different. Copying exactly what a baby does is not realistic, and it is not necessary either. Adults have their own advantages. Now let's move to a more useful example. A child learning a second language. Imagine a family that moves to another country. The parents may struggle with the new language for many years, but their 8-year-old child goes to school, makes friends, and after 1 or 2 years can communicate almost like a native speaker. Many people have seen situations like this. It is impressive, and there is a reason it happens. Children do have some advantages when learning a second language. Their brains are still highly flexible, which helps them absorb new sounds and patterns. A child who learns a language at a young age can often develop very natural pronunciation. For adults, reaching a completely native-like accent is usually much more difficult. Very few adult learners achieve exactly the same pronunciation as native speakers. However, there is good news. There are certain things children do while learning another language that adults can copy. These are not special abilities that only children have. They are habits, behaviors, and attitudes that anyone can develop. The first one is being comfortable with mistakes. Children are not usually afraid of making errors. They try a new word, say it incorrectly, receive feedback, and try again. They do not spend much time worrying about looking foolish. Adults often behave differently. Many adult learners feel embarrassed when they make mistakes in English. They worry that other people will judge them or think they are not good enough. Because of this, they avoid speaking and miss valuable practice opportunities. If you want to improve faster, try to adopt the mindset of a child. Do not treat mistakes as failures. Mistakes are information. Each correction teaches your brain something new and helps you improve. The next time you hesitate before speaking English, remember that avoiding mistakes can slow your progress more than making them. The second important thing is humility. Humility means accepting that you are still learning and that it is completely normal to be a beginner. A child who moves to a new country does not feel embarrassed about not knowing the language. They simply accept the situation and continue learning. They go to school, communicate with other children, make mistakes, and slowly improve. They do not worry about having perfect grammar or perfect pronunciation before they start speaking. Many adults find this much harder. In their own language, they may have a successful career, years of experience, and the respect of others. Then, when they use English, they suddenly feel like a beginner again. That feeling can be uncomfortable, but accepting this situation with humility can make learning much easier. Accept that you are still developing. Accept that sometimes people may not understand you immediately. Accept that progress takes time. This attitude gives you the freedom to practice more and improve faster. The third thing is immersion. Immersion means surrounding yourself with a language as much as possible. When children move to a new country, the language is everywhere. They hear it at school, on television, in shops, on the streets, and during conversations with friends. They do not have to create an English environment. They naturally live inside one. Adults can create a similar experience by making conscious choices. If you are learning English, try to include English in your daily routine. Watch your favorite programs in English. Listen to English podcasts while traveling, exercising, or cooking. Read articles. Follow English content online. Or change your phone settings to English. These small actions may seem simple, but together they create a powerful learning environment. Of course, adults have a different situation from children. A child who moves abroad is surrounded by the new language every day because they have no other choice. Adults need to intentionally build that environment, but with enough commitment, the results can also be very strong. The fourth, and perhaps one of the most powerful ideas, is building a social life in English. When children move to a new country, they usually make friends quickly. They play together, laugh together, share experiences, and communicate in the new language. Because these moments are connected to emotions and relationships, the language becomes deeply connected to their memories. For adults, this can be one of the most effective ways to improve. If you can find people to talk with in English, create friendships, and have real conversations, your progress can become much faster. Language is not only a school subject. It is a tool for connecting with people. When English becomes part of your real life, your brain remembers it more naturally. A conversation with a friend can teach you things that a grammar exercise cannot. So, look for opportunities to use English socially. Join conversation groups, find language exchange partners, communicate with international friends, or participate in communities where English is used. Every real connection you create in English helps you grow. To summarize everything we discussed today, learning English exactly like a baby learns. Their first language is not possible for adults. Our brains, bodies, experiences, and knowledge are completely different from those of young children. But learning certain habits from children who learn a foreign language is absolutely possible. We can become more comfortable with mistakes. We can stay humble while learning. We can surround ourselves with English. And we can create real relationships through the language. These 4 habits can have a huge impact on your English journey. Now, let's look at 5 important words from today's lesson. These words are very useful for English learners and can help you express your ideas more clearly. The first word is distinction. A distinction is a clear difference between 2 things. When you recognize that 2 things are not the same, you are making a distinction. For example, there is an important distinction between a child learning their first language and a child learning a second language. Another example. The teacher explained the distinction between formal English and everyday English. The second word is perceive. To perceive something means to notice, understand, or become aware of something through your senses or your mind. For example, babies can perceive sounds from many different languages. Another example. She perceived a change in his voice and realized that something was wrong. The third word is inhibition. Inhibition is a feeling that prevents you from doing something freely, often because you are worried about what other people might think. For example, many adults feel inhibition when they speak English in front of other people. Another example. He had no inhibition when he performed on stage. He simply enjoyed himself. The fourth word is immersion. Immersion means being surrounded by something completely, especially a language. When you are immersed in a language, you hear it, use it, and interact with it regularly. For example, living in an English-speaking country can provide a powerful form of language immersion. Another example. Her complete immersion in English helped her improve quickly. The fifth word is humility. Humility means understanding your own limits and being open to learning. It means accepting that you still have things to improve and that asking for help is normal. For example, learning a new language requires humility because you will make many mistakes along the way. Another example. He approached the challenge with humility and was willing to learn from others. Another example. He approached the challenge with humility and was willing to learn from others. These 5 words, distinction, perceive, inhibition, immersion, and humility, are useful words that you can use in many everyday situations. Try creating your own sentences with them. Even a short and simple sentence is valuable practice. Thank you so much for listening today. Remember, you do not need to learn English exactly like a baby. You already have something babies do not have: an adult brain filled with knowledge, experience, and understanding. Use that advantage. At the same time, borrow the best qualities children have. Be willing to make mistakes. Stay humble. Surround yourself with English and create meaningful connections with people through the language. Keep learning, keep listening, and keep practicing. Your progress will come step by step.